and check out the rest of the programming. We have joining us today one of my favorite guests, educator, author, activist, Brother Agyei Tyehimba. Peace, Brother Agyei. Thank you for joining us today, brother.
Peace, my brother. Always good to be here.
Yes, and today is August 11th, the official birth date of hip hop. Do you have any thoughts around that?
Well, man, yeah, I got a few thoughts. First of all, I give thanks to the people who had the vision and creativity to create hip hop. And there's people that argue about what exact year it was created. I'm not even going to try to get into that and who started it. We know black people started it. Other than that,
Right.
but the fact that these are people who come from what was probably the poorest U.S. congressional district and area in the country, one of the most violent areas in the country. If y'all saw the movie The Warriors and you saw all them gangs, you might get a sense of the enormity of violence in New York City around the time that hip hop starts. Poor people, greatly miseducated people, greatly mistreated and mischaracterized people, and young people. This is important. This ain't the old people. This is the young people who had the presence of mind to create a whole new genre. And they were African in how they thought and moved. They took turntables, family. I want people to really appreciate this, that people use in a whole different way. Mixers that people use in a whole different way. And made a whole new art form. Whether you're talking about scratching the record, I mean, it's amazing if you really think we always do that. We do that with jazz. We took instruments, the white man's playing dur, 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 and we made that's African. That's straight African. So I salute them, man. And of course, I was a former MC, so it's personal to me. Gave me a way to write. I wrote a lot, was a poet, helped me express myself. And the brothers and sisters in the neighborhood, the dancers, the artists, like it was, hip hop is the bomb, man. So salute.
Yeah. So you touched on jazz music. I want to dial it back a little bit. What was used to produce jazz music before that was known as orchestral instruments, used to make and produce classical music, right? We took that and made jazz. So now turntables and mixers came out, and so we took that and we innovated on that, extending break beats, and Grand Wizard Theodore invented the scratching and all of this. When the turntable and mixer was invented, it was not invented with that intent in mind, but because of our African retention and our African isms and our kuumba, our creativity, we took something that was not even a musical instrument and basically made a musical instrument out of it, the turntable.
Brother, we even took our voices and did beatboxing. I mean, we made our vocal cords instruments. I mean, that's something I want people just to think on another time. Think on our creativity. There's answers in that to our political struggle that we always take what's available, man. We don't sit around and wait for the perfect. We take what's there and we transform it. We Africanize it and use it to our best interests. And sometimes create whole new things like hip hop. So it really speaks to our African ingenuity, if you ask me, and creativity.
Absolutely. And we took what existed before hip hop, which was rap, which wasn't really called rap until maybe the early 1970s. But you had groups like the Gospel Jubileers. They were rhyming and spitting verses on their records back in the maybe 1940s, And so every aspect of hip hop culture actually can be linked back to the continent of Africa. So, for example, the griots will go around telling stories, right, to music. So this rhythmic talking to music that began in Africa. Hip hop is a very drum beat driven music. The origin of the drum obviously is Africa, right? If you look at the people that do capoeira in Angola, looks like they're on the floor breaking. So breaking comes out of Africa. You go as far back as ancient Kemet, they were doing artwork on the walls. So doing artwork on the wall did not begin with graffiti writers in New York City. You could link that back to Africa. So hip hop definitely has those African isms in it. And you said the Bronx was one of the worst congressional districts. The South Bronx was the absolute worst congressional district in the nation. And textbooks at the time even said that. So it's not just us saying it. The textbooks they use in school even said that the Bronx was
And
the worst congressional district.
yes, sir. If I may add very quickly before we get into it, some of the listeners don't have the experience of having grown up there, actually going to visit friends there, going to school there, or whatever. But if you can really imagine when you watch the news and you see a country that's in a war and they dropping bombs in a country and they building half of a building is standing up, or there's bricks and glass and everywhere. Hence the record, the message, broken glass everywhere. He's not making that up. I remember walking through the Bronx and it was like going to Vietnam. And it just became such a part of the landscape. It wasn't something was like, ooh, look at the buildings. It just became, that's what it is. It's the BX.
Normalized.
And Harlem, and let's not forget, Harlem had places like that as well, where I came up. So it's very interesting that sometimes the greatest creativity and resourcefulness comes from those very pockets of culture and society that people tend to dismiss. You know, that's our story,
Absolutely.
man.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now, here's the thing. I lived in the South Bronx back in the day at that time, and seeing abandoned, burned out cars with no windows was normal in the street. Seeing whole buildings that were burned with no windows, whole blocks decimated like a bomb drop. That was normal. We normalized that. In fact, the funny thing is at night, sometimes if you go by some of those abandoned buildings with no windows, some of them that were burned out, the city had not turned the electricity off yet. So sometimes you would see homeless people in there with a twist style television at night. As you go by, you see the glow of a television in an abandoned, burned out building where they hadn't turned the power off yet. So yeah, that was real. That was real. If they haven't done it yet, they need to do documentaries about the Bronx, because you know the phrase back then is the Bronx is burning, right?
Yeah.
And so I think it's interesting that hip hop comes out of this like the most deplorable, reprehensible situation, because you know you have to point to now your elected officials that allow this sort of thing to even transpire. But hip hop comes out of the bottom of everything. We were in the lowest economic and social political condition, and we still created something that became the biggest thing in the world. So I think that speaks to our creativity and our Kalumba. But yeah, I don't want to stay on hip hop too long. But then you know what? I'm not going to spin away from hip hop too much, because it's Black August. And I first learned about Black August because they would do these like hip hop concerts that would go to different parts of the world. So they had one in Cuba, they had one in New York City. I used to go and we would see acts like Dead Prez and Most Def. I think the Roots even performed. How did you first of all, what is Black August? Let's go there first, and then talk about how you originally learned about what Black August is.
Yeah, well, so Black August obviously is centered in and around August, although lately they want people to see it as a year-round commemoration, right? And it's kind of situated from our brothers and sisters on lockdown that are in captivity or in the white man's dungeons we call prisons. Starts around 79, begins kind of at San Quentin State Prison, and it's a bunch of brothers that formed a group called the Black Guerrilla Family. Not the Black Mafia family that you watch on Stars family. The Black Guerrilla Family. The very political kind of Marxist, Leninist, Black nationalists all in one organization. And they were in many ways protesting the murders of certain key individuals. Katari Golden, Brother George Jackson, and so on. They were fighting for better conditions in the prison system. They were fighting for Pan-Africanist coalition building and freeing of political prisoners and a lot of things like that. Definitely George Jackson is a big influence. You know, he wrote several books, Blood of My, Soledad Brother, and outside of the whole thing with him and Angela Davis that people like to talk about, on the real, he was a brilliant theoretician of the movement. He obviously was on the inside. Had he been on the outside, my God, can't imagine the type of organizing, community organizing he would have done. But he was so nice at what he did in the prison system that the Black Panther Party made him, if I'm correct, a field marshal in prison, right? And he was eventually killed, assassinated by guards at San Quentin, who obviously tried to say he killed him. He was trying to run away, escape from the prison system. I think it's important to know that Black August is not like a lot of other holidays where you can just read and watch a movie and have a discussion and you did what you supposed to do. You good. No. Black August is very much action oriented, which is what I like about it. They do things built into Black August is you're going to fast from sunrise to sunset in remembrance of discipline and of the sacrifices that many of our political prisoners made. You got to study works of people, revolutionaries like George Jackson, Franz Fanon, Malcolm, Assata Shakur, Claudia Jones, Huey P. Newton. You got to study their revolutionary works. They want you to write letters to those in captivity, the brothers and sisters, to particularly our political prisoners. Whole community forums, film screenings, teach-ins to talk about ideas of abolishing prisons or radically reforming them, state repression of our people within and outside prison walls, and also to talk about and continue the legacy of Black resistance. And as you pointed to how you heard about it first through concerts and stuff, there's also obviously a cultural part where they encourage people to do poetry events, play music, art that's rooted, though. This ain't just, any type of art. This is revolutionary or Black resistance related art, to uphold those traditions in our community events. So it's a very, very important. Like I said, I just started, man, exercising again, going on an intermittent fast, and it's during Black August when it started.
Okay. Now, you mentioned George Jackson. Not sure if you could tell the story of George Jackson without mentioning his brother Jonathan Jackson. A lot of people don't know this history. So touch on what Jonathan Jackson tried to do with respect to getting his brother free from prison.
Yes. We're talking about, for those watching, we're talking about the 70s, right? And the 60s and 70s, particularly in the United States, is the era of what movement? The Black Power movement and the Black Arts and Consciousness movements. This was a time where our people weren't asking, can we get some more senators and council people, and we want to sit a seat at the table, and no, we were nationalists. We were talking about nationhood. So people's activities were different because of that sort of overarching political ideology. People embraced armed resistance, right? It wasn't seen to be a big deal if the cops shot at your people and you shot back. That was kind of seen like, yeah, that's what happens, right? So in that context, this brother Jonathan Jackson was a 16 to 17-year-old teenager, young boy, and loved his brother George Jackson, idolized him, and also had political consciousness. So he and some of his comrades staged I guess you would say, they didn't get to really abduct him, but they took over a courthouse in Marin County. They took the judge and a few other people. They kind of they rigged a shotgun or a rifle to the judge's head so that if somebody killed the brother that had the judge, he would pull the trigger and kill the judge. And they were taking him out into a van, and they were demanding the release of George Jackson. I believe he was supposed to go appear in that court. I may have that a little bit foggy right now, but it was to protest the treatment of his brother and to have his brother released and others with his brother. Because remember, George Jackson was part of a group of people And while I'm on the subject, talking about Katari Golden, shout out to Mama Sakari Finley, who was the wife of Brother Katari, who's seen as one of the principal figures. She's very supportive of Harlem Liberation School and myself personally. I want to give her a shout out, and she's continued to struggle. An elder now, and she's still speaking out, doing her thing. So, and the guns that he used, I'm sorry, all of them were killed, by the way. Brother John Jackson, the people with him, the judge, all killed. They didn't even get to really leave the site of the courthouse too much. And the guns that he used were traced back to Angela Davis at the time. So this is why Angela Davis goes on a big manhunt for her, because she's a fugitive now. They're trying to say that she in some way orchestrated this, right? And I think this is important, Brother Rob, because it brings up the issue of violence. When we talk about, people say, oh my God, that young boy did that, that's so violent. Well, 16, 17 years old, yeah. Well, doesn't the American government recruit people 17, 18 years old to go to other people's countries and kill them as routine? Nobody says, oh my God, how violent is this American military? Army, Navy, Air Force, Marines going and fighting people that's brown skinned or Afro descended. Nobody raises the question of violence. So the question becomes, who gets to define what violence is? Who gets to tell us when violence or the use of it is legitimate? Right? So you telling me, look, this is how crazy this country is. This country has a military based on violence. Right now they're talking about how Trump is going to crack down on the homeless people and the so-called violence in D.C. And here's the funny part. Since they get to decide what violence is and when it's legitimate, we're always seen as the bad guys. But I always ask, well, wait a minute. Why are these people being violent? Why was there a Black Liberation Army shooting police officers down? That's violent, right? Yeah. But why were they doing that? Because of the violence of police officers. So the Jonathan Jackson thing, we have to take it out of this, ooh, did you hear about Jonathan Jackson? And use that as a very analytical piece. Because he challenged this notion of who has the right to use quote unquote violence and when it is so-called legitimate.
I think that's interesting because we talk about in America the Revolutionary War, which was violent. And this was white people in America trying to get their independence from white people in Europe. And, we tell the story and we kind of romanticize the story. And, it's almost like we don't see it as violence. But when Black people engage in violence, which, Malcolm X said, if it's in self-defense, it's not violence, it's intelligence. When Black people engage in violence, it's seen as something subversive, as opposed to something that should be normal if you want to get your freedom, if you're being oppressed. Now, you mentioned Angela Davis, and she obviously went, that's a whole nother story. I'm not even going to get into that.
Whole book.
Yeah. People like Angela Davis and Dr. Karenga, they found themselves in some trouble back in the 1970s, and they come out of prison and become professors on the college level. Some people kind of look at that in a kind of a suspect way. What is your perspective on that?
Well, man, I have a policy. I don't believe in fact, I teach against calling people agents or informants when we don't have proof, because that gets, at least back in the day, that got a bullet in the back of your head very quickly. You just disappeared. People wasn't happy. Revolutionary movements can't entertain traitors. So I'm you'll never hear me say, unless I know for a fact, and I'll give you proof. I don't put that out there. But I need to say this. Angela Davis and Dr. Molan Karenga are brilliant. We need to be real clear. They wasn't given degrees. These people are brilliant. Okay? Absolutely brilliant, intellectually speaking. Right? Karenga has 2 doctorate degrees. Wow. And is one of the founding, I guess, fathers, if you will, along with many others like Dr. James Turner and Dr. John Henrik Clarke, of Africana studies. His book for many decades was used as the introductory book for Africana studies. So this ain't no lightweight dude that the white man just, let's put him down. Now, he worked for them. He's smart. He's brilliant. And Angela Davis is brilliant. Whether we agree with some of her politics or not, and I do believe in giving people credit. Angela Davis has been fighting it for prison reform. In fact, she's been fighting for prison abolition for years, right? So, and she had a kind of a quasi relationship with George Jackson to the degree that you can have one when the person is incarcerated. So she has certain sexual politics, I think, that, nationalists and Pan-Africanists don't rock with, but she's brilliant, family. Never confuse the two. She's a person, you may not like them, you may disagree with them, but if they're brilliant, give them that credit. And they were brilliant, and they each served a purpose in our movement, one way or another.
You talked about Black August, including fasting as well as training. This is not Black History Month Part 2, the sequel, is it?
No, this is, and if we could be honest, but I've been saying for a long time, Black History Month should be more activist oriented. And back when, certainly in the 60s and 70s, again, in Black Power, Black Arts movements, it was. We're in an era, a generation that is a lot more cerebral, maybe a lot more online activism, so to speak. A lot more. I saw the Malcolm X movie, and we raised money. We gave out backpacks for the kids, so we did our thing. And so this is on us, our generation, middle-aged people and older, to make sure that our millennials and our Gen Zs know what is up in this country with their people, and know that they got to do more than go to see the movie and donate a little money to this organization. If they have the capacity to be more meaningfully involved. And I'm not a proponent of there's one way to do stuff, but the young Frantz Fanon said each generation must, out of relative obscurity, identify its role and fulfill or betray it. Each generation. So the question has to be, well, what will our generation do to make sure that the generations coming up have a clear idea that this just ain't about doing the latest dance on TikTok, looking cute and taking selfies, family, and buying all the white man's products. This is about, do you want to be free? Liberation. A word I don't hear a whole lot these days for some reason. That's what this is about. Because when you live, I would imagine that when you're liberated and have your own territory and you could defend it and you govern yourselves and you make the rules, I would imagine I'd be partying like a mug. I'd be the first one partying then. Shit, you couldn't get me off the dance floor because we're free. Right. But to be doing all that activity, knowing that we are regularly killed with impunity, knowing that they could snatch you up, throw you in jail, knowing that they could mischaracterize you, call you all types of things, send you to another country, family, and you were born here. To be partying in the midst of that and not having an equal amount of resistance says a lot. So that means we got teaching to do, we got some nudging to do, and we won't be the most popular at the cookout, but we will live with respect and die with honor. And our names will ring forever because people remember people like that and movements like that. That's why they just renamed 110th Street. I think that's the 3-line, the train, after Malcolm X. Governor Hochul, a whole bunch of people. Not a big deal. It's symbolic. But the point is his name rings out like that because of that type of discipline, his focus. Reminding people, don't get too caught up over there. And I think we're going to talk about this topic, why there's no revolution in this country right now. It's a perfect. I mean, it really is gonna make sense when we get into that. So yeah,
Yeah, we're coming to that.
that's how I see it, man.
We're coming to that in a minute. Black August is honoring the legacy of Black resistance. It's not just Black history necessarily, but I'm noticing, and I don't know if you spend a lot of time going to like Black History Month programs at local libraries and so forth. I'm finding now Black History Month to be little more than a glorification of the civil rights movement. Are you seeing that?
Well, I this is what I see. That when Carter G. Woodson created Negro History Week in the first 2 decades of the 20th century, he was coming from a contributionist, vindicationist point of view. Because back then they were saying we monkeys, we primitive, we got tails, we eat people with our stew, and we hyperviolent, hypersexual. So the leading intellectuals of his day, which would also include self-taught people like J.A. Rogers, Joel Augustus Rogers, the great one, right? Their main concern was showing white folk and Black people that no, we contributed to the world. We're part of civilization. All the things that you do and appliances you use come from us. So it was more of so back then that was fine. We're now in the 21st century though now, family. So the Black history can't stay just, did you know that the first Black dishwasher in a restaurant? Nah, we gotta move. Now we're trying to solve problems, trying to analyze why is this happening disproportionately to us? How do we resist? What is our liberation theory and resistance theory? What institutions do we need and how do we build them and what are the components and what careers? I just did an ebook, 35 careers Black children should consider looking into the future. If we're gonna have a Black nation, what do our kids need to be training in to fulfill those roles? Right? So that's the way that, to me, Black history, Black August, Black anything should be refocusing our people and reframing. And if great grandma comes to the cookout and she's saying, did you know this? Did you know that? Hey, we ain't gonna diss grandma, great grandma. She's the reason we're here. So we're just gonna gently say, well, grandma, that's true. And also, and then add, what things do you think we need to do to make our situation, pivot the conversation so we're not just doing this nostalgic Black trivia quiz, right? But that we're actually talking about how do we get free. One of the reasons I love Black August is they really tapped into something important. The types of conversations we need to have, very important, and make sure we don't discard and dismiss those of our brothers and sisters who are in captivity, and even those who are in there because they committed actual crimes. It raises a question in our nation. Well, how are we going to deal with the deviants? How are we going to really try to rehabilitate them? Or are we going to castigate and dismiss them and put them in environments that make them greater criminals? So a lot of questions come from this intellectually and in terms of activism if we really think about what Black August is trying to get us to see and do.
Okay, we got a lot of positive responses in the chat based on what you're saying. You're kind of on fire today. So I would say to anybody in the chat, if you have a question for Brother Agyei Tyehimba, by all means, put that in the chat, and we will do our best to get that question over to him. Now, Brother Agyei, you did a video recently called Why There Is No Revolution in America. I want to first begin that conversation by asking you to define the word revolution.
Yes. The root word of revolution is revolve. A lot of times people say we want a complete 360, but if you really think about it, if your car is in this direction, revolution doesn't mean to take it right back here. It means to completely change it. So it means an overthrow, literally and technically, of the government. Technically, it means a complete change, a complete transformation of who owns the means of production, who has assets, who has access to mobility, who has access to education, who's in charge of administrating all these different institutions, who's setting up the standards, who's enforcing the law, who's writing the law, who's creating domestic and foreign policy. All of that completely changes. The Bible says the last shall be first and the first shall be last. That's another way of looking at it, that you're revolving. So, for instance, we've had revolutionary movements and we have revolutionary organizations. A sister tried to challenge me on that video and said, brother, I disagree. We got December 12th movement. She's breaking all these movements down. And I told her, listen, sis, I got nothing but respect for December 12th. Rest in power to Sister Viola Plummer and certainly Baba Alambi Braff and others. I'm saying we have no revolution. You can have organizations that are advocating, sure, but there's no revolution. Not in that way. We have revolutions in terms of the school, the African Center School movement, man. Oh yeah, we doing good with that. After school programs, black farmers. There's a lot STEM research and STEM education. But in terms of these people still got to go to who for grant money though? Hello, holla if you hear me. Right. So in the revolution, your people are now the people you go to for grant money because your people run the government. Hello. So that's the thing with revolution. It's supposed to be an overthrow of the powers that are in power, replace them with the people who are the oppressed. So for a simple way of looking at it, look at Cuba. It was run by Batista, the dictator. It was nothing but an island resort for the mafia family. Cuba was a huge casino, okay, for the mafia. Castro, Che Guevara and them get in. It is now a functioning nation and a self-determination. They kicked the mob out. They took over control of all of their natural resources. That's revolution. Now, there's also cultural and educational revolutions, but that's kind of a little bit different.
Okay. You mentioned some subtle nuances. Revolution is not always violence per se, is it? Because you mentioned a lot of subtle things there that were not violent. A lot of people hear revolution and they think violence. So revolution does not have to be violent necessarily, right? Is that correct?
Well, like I said, there's educational revolution. So if you tired of, I know like me and some teachers, we tired of this school demeaning our kids. There's a great school. They going to boarding schools and they getting scholarships, but they talking to our kids like they crap. So we start a new school and we have African music playing to change classes. We name the classes after qualities, not Ivy League schools like the other schools. Come here, charisma. Courage. Where's courage? That's a class. That changes the whole mindset, right? That's a revolution. We have taken ownership of our schools. So yes, but if we're talking political revolution, assuming that the people in power are not going to be too amenable to sharing it with you, oftentimes it leads to bloody acts of violence. But remember, there's sometimes like in Ghana, when Kwame Nkrumah came into power, it wasn't no bloodshed. So there are times when, depending on the different things at play, where people can actually have, and you know, Malcolm famously talked about this in Message to the Grassroots, right? He talked about, in white man said in Korea, you bled. He said in his place, you bled. When it comes time to bleed for your 4 little girls bombed in a Birmingham church, you ain't got no blood. And he's saying that in order to change things in that very political way, literally, often it will take bloodshed because the people that you're trying to take out of power want to stay in power, right? They don't want to leave. But we're nuanced. And we do understand, no, all revolutions do not have to be bloody. However, check this out. All revolutions will have white backlash and resistance. So even if it's not violent in terms of bloodshed, a lot of people, that school, the white board of ed got in the way. and pretty much forced the founders of it out and changed the whole
Mm.
culture of it. Even though it was one of the highest performing schools in the entire state. See, this is what I mean. So the violence isn't always bloody violence. Sometimes it's creating such an uncomfortable situation that people feel compelled to leave. Or sometimes it's misrepresenting someone's name or character. Or sometimes it's making sure people can't get work. Or sometimes it's making sure people can't get decent housing. So it can take a lot of forms. But understand, when we wake up, clean up, and stand up with Kusu, the white man or whoever is in power is never going to sit back and say, hey, yeah, man, take control, take the wealth that I've been getting. Yeah, take over my corporations. And nah, they're going to always fight back. It just may not be bloody all the time. Look at what Donald Trump is doing right now. He's doing a lot of bloodless resistance, right? And what is he using? The pen. He's using executive orders and legislation, and he's kind of pressuring these universities to comply to his backwards reactionary demands, or he's saying, I won't give you your federal funding. That's not one drop of blood spill, but yet it's very violent what he's doing when you use coercion and pressure like that. So yeah, it goes back to what we said about violence. This whole idea of what is violent, who defines it. Yeah.
Yeah. I had Reverend Anthony Williams out of Chicago. He's got a national campaign to get violence viewed as a public health crisis. He said the word violence comes from the word violate. So you don't have to engage in a physical act of violence against someone to violate them or be violent against them. The word revolution basically just means change. Like, in certain circles, we'll say the Bomb Squad revolutionized the way hip hop is produced. It just means they changed it. Prince Paul revolutionized the way people produce rap music. It just means that, he changed it. In the art of war, Sun Tzu said the supreme art of war is to subdue your enemy without engaging them in physical battle. So this is some of what you're talking about. Okay, so why is there no revolution in America? Or this is why there is no revolution in America. What can you tell us about that video that you posted recently?
Okay, I want to frame this with a disclaimer. By taking this position, I'm not saying this is the only factor. I'm not saying, what I am saying, it is a major factor, because it's a question I've asked myself as a scholar for years. I'm looking at coup d'etats, military takeovers, hostile takeovers in these different countries, and I'm wondering, with all the stuff that the United States has done to outsiders and people who live within its confines, why has there been no coup? And the only real coup I can speak of is the one that happened in January a few years ago with white folk who was trying to take over the Capitol building. But why has there been no black coup d'etat? Right? Why? What has the government done to make sure that we don't look at the history, look at their record, look at what they did to our leaders, murdering them and to making some of them go crazy, incarcerating them until they could barely walk when they get out, if they get out, and why we're doing nothing about it? What happened, right? And I posited, my premise was, America has mastered the art of entertainment. America has mastered the art of movies and designer stuff and things like that, right? That was just a theory I had. And then doing some research, I came across a guy named Aldous Huxley, a British science fiction writer, who wrote a book in the 1930s called Brave New World. Now, we know about George Orwell's 1984. His book was more like the government is going to be spying on you. They're going to have cameras and surveillance everywhere. They're going to imprison you. They're going to beat you up. More like overt force was his lens of looking at how the government exerts control over its population. But what makes Huxley's book, and you should all read it, Brave New World, interesting and unique, is that what his premise is that, no, violence is, when you got to use violence, that's the last form, that's the worst form of control. Because what violence does is it breeds what? Retaliation. People are going to take only but so much, and then they're going to shoot back. They're going to, they're going to run away. But what Huxley is showing us is almost, what if you had a plantation and you didn't whip the enslaved people, and you didn't call them mean names, and you didn't take sexual liberties with them? What if you made sure that they ate some of the best food and made sure that where they stayed at looked almost like where you stay at? And what if you made sure they had nice clothes? How would that change? Would the people still be wanting to run away and resist? So what he breaks down is, in this world he creates, the government uses pleasure, satisfaction, comfort to keep people controlled, and it's much more effective than violence for the reasons I just stated. The government has where you actually want to be a part of what they're doing, because they make it so attractive. So why is there no revolution? Well, a lot of the would-be revolutionaries, potential revolutionaries, are too busy buying all their shit, too busy looking at the award show, too busy saying, man, I need that, I gotta get that. And they're not talking about liberation. They're not talking about education. They're not talking about their own business. They're talking about, I gotta buy from this entity, right? In the book, there was a drug called Soma, S-O-M-A. So the government gave out this drug called Soma, which made people feel, makes you wonder, could that be why weed is now legalized? Could that be? Is there, since we like talking conspiracies as a people, could that be why you can now go right to your corner store and buy weed that some of my boys growing up with went to prison for selling? And now you can have dispensaries and sell it openly to sedate the young? And we don't know what other side effects it has, because I looked up that it messes with their ability to think and reason. So it's the same thing. Think about this, family. You can get, back in the day, if I wanted to get food, my mother was like, look, I'm not cooking. We had to go to McDonald's. My father and I had to get on a bus and go all the way from 143rd Street to 125th Street to McDonald's. And that wasn't no real food, but that was just like something quick. Can you imagine having food from 140, you going from 43rd to 125th coming back, how cold that food is going to be on the bus? Or you had to walk somewhere. Now, you get your phone out, you go to Grubhub, you order whatever you want. You don't even have to go outside. It comes to you. Don't matter how old you are. Order it up, comes right to you. You want something back in the day, if you wanted a certain type of furniture item, appliance item, you had to take your behind to the store.
That's right.
Now you can go to Amazon or these Asian sort of rip-offs of Amazon, and you can get whatever you want, the color you want, the capacity you want. You can view different prices. You can get payment plans, and it comes right to you. Right? So it's a society of comfort. So how does this get in the way of revolution? Because as you're thinking those revolutionary thoughts, damn, them policemen, I'm tired of this. As you're thinking, man, I'm tired of these schools. People graduate and can't even read and write a good paper that's logical, that has actual substantive citation. But you went to school for 12 years and you can't do that? I'm not mad at you, I'm mad at the system. Just as you having that thought, you're like, yo, did my stuff come yet? Well, we got to order some food. We got to watch the Super Bowl. We got to check out the BET Award. We got to get this new... You see? That compromises their fight. Their righteous indignation is smothered by feelings of, I'm satiated. I feel comfortable because I got this thing. And there's even studies. The dopamine that's released in your brain when your package arrives. It's amazing. They said it's a feeling of, no, it's like dead serious. It's a feeling of, you just smoked a nice blunt. You're like, likes in the social media. Same effect. Dopamine's released. You feel like somebody liked my stuff. I'm popular. People feeling me. So that whole culture, America has perfected that. And that is one of the key reasons you don't see a people who absolutely positively have every reason to wage revolutionary war on every front. You don't see them doing that because the people who would do that are caught up in see? That's how they got us, bro. They got us good, and we can't get upset. We should admit that's true. It's true. And then we forge plans to resist that and to break that mold, or at least create balance. So that would be like, if people not getting me, that would be like you on a slave ship taken from your native land. You find out that they're taking you to a place they're going to work you to death, sexually assault you, your brothers, your sisters, your mama, everybody. And that your kids are going to be in your same situation as you. And upon hearing all that, all of you chained up, sitting in your own excrement, sores all over your body, whipped to death, start celebrating. Like, you don't understand the condition you're in. You're not looking at the context you're in. So in a way, it's like you're enslaved on a slave ship, going to in servitude and perpetuity. And that's deep. Like, meaning that your kids, your grandkids, your great-grands will be in your same condition. This is the first generation that's doing worse than its former generation. I don't know if people knew that. The great network brother and elder, George Frazier, broke that down. He said, we are the first generation to be doing worse than our previous generation. That now, all of our parents, one thing they would tell you they wanted: I want you to do better than me, be in a better situation, to have more opportunity. And one of the reasons that's not in play is because they use distractions, they use comfort, they drug us with TV and some of the most foolish stuff you could ever imagine. They got us caught up in. They got us wondering about stuff that has absolutely nothing to do with us, doesn't help us, doesn't push us forward, doesn't put money in our pockets. Complete tomfoolery. And we got to call it what it is. And as long as we're stuck there in that, you might say, frequency, that frequency, man, is like the sirens in the ancient Greek mythology. They sang, and their singing hypnotized people, had them in a daze where they couldn't think straight. Or the Pied Piper. See, the white man tells on himself. The Pied Piper leading the rats away into the river. It's the same thing. They got us caught up in this frequency of be upset, complain about it, don't do nothing about it. And if you think about doing something about it, man, where Malcolm said it, where we got a better house than we got here? Where are we gonna get better food than we got here? That's where we are. And I know that's upsetting to some people who maybe watch. I'm not beating us up. I'm telling you, that's what they've done, and it's working. It is working. There was a time you went into a spot, a social place, and you say, "Hey, man, who read Malcolm X Speaks?" "Oh yeah, yo, I liked. What do you think about Message to the Grab, man? That message, yeah, I like how you broke down the Bandung conference and how they kicked the white man out." If you do that today, they'd be looking at you like, "What is you talking about, fam? Nobody want to hear that. What you trying to kick knowledge?" That's a culture that was created. But if you say, "Oh, yo, so-and-so got mad drunk. There's mad liquor over there. There's the honeys there. They barely wearing no clothes." You're like, oh, that gets you energized. You could tell about a person or people by what energizes them. What do they spend their money on most of it? What do they spend most of their time doing? That tells you who you are. And I don't think we should feel bad. I think we should know that we've been duped, run amok, led astray, and bamboozled, like Brother Malcolm said, and we should get out of that stupor.
Yeah, so you mentioned Brave New World. I don't think you could mention that book without also mentioning 1984 by George Orwell,
Yeah,
which is
yeah.
something
I
along
talked
the
about
same
that.
lines. Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And so
But
I got knocked offline for a minute. Go ahead. Go ahead.
yeah, I saw that. You okay? Everything good?
Yeah, yeah. It's a Wi-Fi issue on my end, but I'm good.
Hey man, that's
But
technology for you, right? You can't call it. But
yeah,
yeah, so that's
yeah.
the thing with Orwell. I was making a point earlier. See, Orwell, his lens was violence. The government will use violence and surveillance, and
Mm,
it does. It does.
right.
But the most sophisticated and effective way to control people is to make people think everything's good. What did Harriet Tubman say? I freed X amount of slaves. I could have freed more if only they knew they were slaves. Right?
Right.
So in Brave New World, all these citizens actually think they're free. They're like, no, man, I get this to deal with this soma drug. It makes me feel high. I could do whatever I want. Sex was a big casual sex was a big part of that book as well, which made it
Yeah.
controversial and banned in some countries. Because we're talking about, the casual
Yeah.
sex, all types of drugs, do what you want, anytime you want, no type of standards or ethos. So yeah.
Yeah, that sounds like a little bit like the movie I was telling you about, Idiocracy, where everybody's so dumbed down that they're wearing Crocs and everyone's staring into a screen all day, and no one's thinking any kind of revolutionary anything to change their and transform their current condition. Now, you talked about distractions. I think social media is one of the worst things that ever happened to Black people. A lot of people are focused on what's going on Instagram and the latest TikTok dance. How much of the distraction and how much of the nonviolent warfare can you blame on social media? How much of a part of that is the social media at this point?
Man, social media is one of their number one weapons when it comes to the distraction. Because remember, my argument is the reason there's no revolution is because of distractions, being sedated, drugged, and comfort, right? Pleasure. We're a pleasure-seeking generation. We don't want to hear no conversation about what is going on over there. We need to do something about it. We want to hear, where's the weed at, fam? Where's the trees?
That's right.
Where's the
That's right.
liquor? Where's the party? I want to have fun. And here's the thing. We should want to have fun, and we should have fun. But living under captivity, colonization ain't no fun. So, right? So we need people to be able to recognize, yeah, we gonna have ultimate fun when we free. We ain't gotta answer to these people working 30, 40 years at the same job. You get a watch and a $10,000 check. What? No, we gotta change that. Somebody has to change that. Social media is crazy. I actually have myself to a point where I go on maybe 3 times a day in the morning, check messages, put my posts up, come back, see if anybody responded, if I need to respond back, because that's good protocol, respond back to people. And then at night, and these are 5-minute, maybe 5-minute durations of time. I do not get at, because I already see that joint is a rabbit hole that you can never come out of if you
That's
go
right.
into it. But if
Now,
you
I'm glad.
discipline, if you discipline, you don't have to stay there for hours. You scrolling for hours. Broke.
Yeah.
Scrolling for hours.
Right.
Don't
Right.
like your environment. Scrolling for hours. Don't like police brutality. Guess what? If you took a little bit of that time you scrolling and you started rolling and organized, you might be able to change some of the conditions that we don't like. So it's kind of that thing. It's not only a distraction, it's that it's the mismanagement of our time and our resources. We can do anything we organize and work to do. Anything. We can make the white man rich instantly by buying his products and making it the big deal or the trend. We can make people do our dances. We can make people change their hair. I saw Japanese dudes getting locks. We can do anything we choose to do. So the thing with the social media is it distracts you and gets you caught up in what we might call, in the spiritual context, low vibrational activities. kind of low
Sure.
on the scheme of things you could be doing with your time, and that's okay because we all need a release. But I think with the social media, it's just way too much. The video games, and then what? The white man's putting his commercials. See, here's the other piece. While you're doing that, you may forget that there's a profit motive for them. So they got the little commercials popping up on your screen. Dunkin' Donuts, designer bag, Nike sneakers, and it's subtle, so you might miss it.
Sure.
But they still got that subliminal conditioning going on, even while you're being distracted. So that's real, and I really think that organizations really need to take a lead in talking about that, and not beating people up, but letting them know this is real. This is not made up. There's studies and reports that they all do. This is clear. They have metrics. Why do you think Amazon is so big? Amazon knows what pages you visited, what products you bought, how many times you bought it. It can suggest things to you. Why? Because they know everything about your buying habits.
Absolutely.
Right?
Absolutely. Now, I thought go ahead.
No, go ahead, my brother.
No, I was going to say, in terms of the time that people waste, the people that take the stats, they say Black people spend more time watching television than every other demographic. And Black people spend more time on social media than any other demographic. So not only that, like the neuroscientists and people that do research on the brain, they say this doom scrolling on the phone can actually physically shrink your brain because you're not.
I read a whole book about that. And I did a video. That's real. Literally reconfigures your brain, and we wonder why some of these really young ones, what is wrong with them? Well, what's wrong with them is their faces on the screen almost all day long. They're not forced to solve any problem. We do everything for them. They're not forced to say, okay, here's my problem. What am I going to do? And then if I need help, I'll come to you for help. We do. So, yeah, where would the growth be? Where would the growth be? And also, this book, I forget her name, Marianne something. She wrote a book. She's a neurologist, and she was a teacher. And she's trying to figure out why my students can't seem to get it together here. And what she found was those of us, me and you, for instance, we were born in the analog age. So we might use digital, but it's different. Because we were steeped in that analog tradition, we could tell the time, we could write our names in script, we could solve problems differently. Right? We can critically think. But if you was born in an age where it was all digital, some of these kids can't tell you the time. They can look at a clock that's analog, they can't tell you the time. They can't write their name. But she said more than that. When you read from traditional books, as opposed to scrolling, you get more in-depth knowledge. You develop empathy. So she's now making a connection to social psychological behavior that the constant screen makes people who are cold. They don't really care about you. They don't really care about the struggle. You're wondering why are they so cold? Well, there's reasons for that. There's reasons why they don't. They're like, whatever. Right. So this is a very important thing that I think people should study because there's studies on it.
Yeah, I'm noticing just driving on the road, people are driving crazy. People have less patience now. And this goes to that less empathy that you talk about. Everybody wants everything in a rush. You talked about
quick.
People don't cook no more. The food comes to your door. Everybody wants instant gratification. And the social media and the television and the broadcast media, a lot of that is part of it. And all of this is basically propaganda. And the system uses propaganda against us because it works. So if you're doing something that works, you're not gonna switch that up. You're not gonna change that because it works, right?
And this works so crazy, Ra, because this is a type of weapon. Imagine you could make a weapon for your enemy, targeting your enemy, that your enemy loves. Imagine that. This weapon you made to destroy them, and they love it. So that means there's no what? Resistance.
There's no resistance to it, right?
It's a perfect weapon.
Right.
It's perfect. So, we got to give the white man, oppressor, devil, colonizer award for his his malevolence on the highest level, and his use of genius in negative and wicked ways. You know,
Yeah,
got
this is
people loving
this
his
is
contraption. Like, nah, man, that ain't. People can't get off their device, bro. Like, what impact will that have on our relationships, on our organizations,
right.
on our businesses, on our movement? If you can't get off the damn phone for 10 minutes without having some type of,
Yeah,
like, almost like a withdrawal, that was conditioned in us, and that's not just
sure,
us.
sure.
Because when they target us, they have what you would call casualties of war, or collateral damage. So some of their own are now addicts too, and it's compromised some of their own. But for our purposes, these are things we have to deal with. Come up with programs, help people unplugged. You know, have people having these discussions.
Now I'm gonna add on to what you just said, but just as an aside, we got War Drum in the chat. He says our young men don't know how to change a tire or use jumper cables. we don't know that yet. I mean, I'm laughing, but it's sad. It's actually sad. Um, the last thing I would like to add to what you're saying, brother Siddiqui Bakari, he does a lot of research on AI and a lot of the technology. He said basically there's been 5 domains of warfare: land, air, sea, space, cyberspace. And I said the 6th domain is the human domain. So a lot of this social media and whatever propaganda giving the television is controlling your thinking. So Carter G. Woodson said, if you control a man's thoughts, you don't have to worry about his actions, right? So
That's
the
right.
sixth domain of warfare now is the human domain. They want to control what you think. So there's not going to be any revolutionary thinking if they're not steering your mind in that direction. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, the enemy will be the enemy in every way possible at all times. The question for us has to be, once we recognize that we're caught up in the rabbit holes and the webs and traps he set for us, and the malevolent, nefarious impact it has on our lives, then it's up to us to say, how do we now resist that? Right? So you have teachers, there's schools where the kids, they fighting with the kids and the parents to put their cell phones away. Like, come on. They filming TikToks in
Yeah,
the
that's
class.
crazy.
Like enough is enough.
That's
Like,
crazy.
so we need when we talk about revolution, we talking about earlier, we need a revolution of our priorities, our values. What are you willing to go without? What are you willing to die for? What are you willing to live for? Is it your device, or is it your kids and your spouses, your boyfriends, your girlfriends, your community? Like, really, a revolution of
Yeah.
values and priorities. Because when people got their priorities lined up in high vibrational ways, they are a force to be reckoned with. They're gonna say, "Nah, get that out of here. We don't want that." And now we don't support
Yeah.
that politician. Where you come from, you have no record of everything changes. But if you keep people's priorities low, vibrational, then you got them. And we can still leave, we can change that. We can change that
Yeah.
too.
Yeah.
Brother, if you don't mind, would I be able to show something, share my screen
Oh yeah. Go ahead. Yes,
real
absolutely.
quick? Because as
Yeah,
we're
go ahead.
talking about
Go ahead,
how
finish.
white people subjugate us and the weapons they use, those of us who are serious about liberation come up with our own weapons, right? We come up and as I'm telling you to change the way we think, the things we value and prioritize, I've gotten into this thing of doing these eBooks. They're short, to the point, plain language, sometimes colorful, and they are Gen Z friendly, right? In a
Yeah,
generation
that's
that doesn't like to read anymore. Because that's the other thing. That's a whole nother story. And so I created an online store. I have about 15 ebooks now. And I just want to show it to people. And I'm hoping that they will come and support. Let me see if I can bring it
absolutely.
up.
Well, what's the website, brother? Why are you bringing that up?
It is HTTPS. It's payhip.com/Wukusu products.
Okay.
I'm going to try to show it now.
I'm putting that in the chat now, so hopefully people can go straight to it. payhip.com/wukusu products. I'm putting that in the chat.
So
I'm
you
hoping
should see a
people can.
colorful screen. Do you see it?
I see it, sure.
Okay, so that says Agyei Tyehimba Empowerment Coaching based on the Wukusu Wake Up, Clean Up, Stand Up framework of empowerment. So you notice 10 things to do in tough times. The turtle philosophy, a guide for grounded, empowered living. This speaks directly what we're talking about. Having your own frame of reference, being self-determined, self-reliant, not being moved by because what that person going on, what's going on in their house, what they doing. You worried about making sure your stuff is tight as possible so that you can now be a resource to others. The meaning of Wukusu, a self-community empowerment, a self and community empowerment framework. This is the whole foundation of this idea of Wukusu. I took it from Malcolm's statement and tried to build it out to be not just a statement, not just rhetoric that people quote, not even just our Harlem Liberation School greeting, but a way of life that if we took it seriously and tried to even embody some of the principles and practices, we'd be a whole different people. We'd have more money. We'd have probably land. We'd be happier. We'd be fulfilled because we're doing what we put here to do instead of what mama told us and grandma told us and what the society told us and what we can and can't. We wouldn't be thinking like that, right? From stuck to start is just how to reclaim control of your life in 5 steps. Your life is out of control. You don't know where you're going. You don't know your head from your tail. You got 5 steps that can help you get back on track. 5 reasons why Black people need empowerment coaching. 10 questions that would transform your life. Preparation for our Black nation. 35 careers Black children should consider. You got little kids right now. When I was young, I knew I wanted to be some type of person that would help Black people. I didn't know how I was going to do it, but I had that in my mind. And just having that thought kept me from certain activity and got me involved in certain activity, right? So if we can start talking with them young, then we could be raising a generation of kids. They're not doing what we think they should do. They're doing what their skills and gifts and personality traits lead them to do, and it's helpful for the nation. For my brothers, I got 100 affirmations for Black men. God knows we need to get our minds and spirits right. There's a lot against us. We were taught a lot of false teachings about what a man is, what a man looks like. And this is trying to get us back on track to be the real kings and leaders we were put here to be. And then these next books, it's like a 5-part series for Gen Z. I'm real big on Gen Z, Brother Rob, because of all of the age groups right now, Gen Z is that age group, 12 to roughly 26, 27 years old right now. That's Gen Z. They're the generation that can actually functionally do things. Of course, we should start them at 1 year old, but they can't do nothing at 1 or 3. But from 12 to 27, they can build business, write books, create movies, create hospitals, heal our people, teach, whatever. So I'm really hitting hard on really trying to get it across to them. They're the generation that if they get it right, it will ensure a brighter future for us. So each one of these books is called Gen Z. It's time to glow up. Glow is a Gen Z slang expression, right? So instead of grow up, glow up. And each one highlights different characteristics: self-esteem and confidence, diligence and drive, resilience and self-discipline, empathy, consideration and humility, integrity and accountability. And these are like no more than 15 pages, right? So it's not something that's like you got to spend the rest of your life reading it, and also 20 life lessons for youth. And I think the one I share with you is here, brother. Empower yourself, 33 practical and powerful life hacks, right? So
Yes.
I want to just, encourage people to go support your brother, but more importantly, support yourself. If you don't like what's coming out of you or your people, that means you got to change what you're putting into you and your people. Just like physical fitness, we have to reprogram ourselves, and we have to take away the slave mentality, man, and start thinking like, people say I'm a boss, and I don't know if they give thought to what that means, but bosses set their own rules. Bosses are self-determined. They don't have to go to anybody for anything. mostly, right? So if we want to be bosses in that sense, self-determined, can take care of ourselves, can solve any problem, no matter where you put us to throw us into any situation, we can rise and remain supreme. Then we have to change our thoughts, what we're feeding ourselves, right? So I hope people go to, you see the I think you can see the website there on the top. Go
Yeah,
to,
I'm not. It's not very big. It's
I
not very
can
big on my end. I did put it in the chat. Go ahead.
oh, thank you, my brother. And these things are
Yeah.
moderately priced. Some of the 3 of them are completely free with the option for you to pay what you want. And so there are 3 of these books are completely free. But if you want to give me $1,000, I'll take it.
Right.
You want to give me $2, I take it. The rest of them, if they're for youth, they're all $5. If they're for more adult-oriented topics, they're $10. So it's very simple. And you get it instantly. As soon as you download, you get it instantly. You join my email list, and I can start also sending you other information. So hope people will support.
Yeah, this really resonates with me. I would tell people go to payhip.com. That's payhip.com/Wukusu products. And Wukusu is WUCUSU products. Wukusu stands, of course, for Wake Up, Clean Up, Stand Up. So payhip.com/Wukusu products. And I think there's an African concept. It's Nyansa Nsada. It's will and skill. You want to have the will and the skill to be able to do whatever it is you have to do to transform your condition. And you made a good point a while back, and I was thinking about the supreme mathematics of the nation of gods and earths. Number 8 is build and destroy. What are you willing to build, and what are you willing to destroy to get free and transform the condition of your group? I don't know if they interpret it that way. That's my interpretation as a revolutionary Pan-African nationalist, but I do want to send people to payhip.com/Wukusu products. I also would like to tell people to go online and get some of Brother Agyei's actual physical books. The brother got a stack of books. I would definitely direct
thank you for supporting, brother. Your brother got 3 of the books. Thank you for that, brother. That's humbling.
Yeah, most definitely.
And I got your book. So, hey, Brother Ra's book is very, listen, family. I'm trained as a scholar, but I don't believe in these books, the 800-page books that 2 people are going to read. No disrespect. But I believe in hitting the people where they at. And this brother's book, F.A.C.T, is gives a lot of the foundational stuff. If you was talking to a teenager, a 20-something, a 30-something, a 40-something, whoever who doesn't have knowledge of self like that, yo, where do I begin? Yo, and you had an extra copy? Check this out.
There you go.
Gives you the foundation. And brother, I want you to know, we may not be considered by the white man best-selling authors. And we may not have sold 1 million units yet. But that type of information is going to get to the right people. You ain't going to get everybody, but it's going to get to some little kid who says, I want to be like Garvey. And how do I know? Because when I was 13, I picked up a book in my bedroom my father had hidden on the shelf called Malcolm X Speaks. And I said, I want to be like this brother. I'm going to study him. Everything I can get my hands on, I want to be like him in some way, shape, or form. I ain't going to be him, but some way, shape, and form. And that singular decision kept me away from a lot of nefarious activity and people and put me on a road to meet some really empowering, high vibrational people and to be part of some great organizations and movements. So your work you're doing with that book, brother, is very, very important. And sometimes you don't get the type of response you should get from the people. You know, people running to say, did you see this? See some complete bullshit, part of my language. And they should be like, yo, did you pick up Brother Ra's book? That changed my life. Like, see, that's what I'm trying to say. And I'm not beating us up. We need to be clear. because we can reverse that if we understand it. So I want people to also go out and support this brother's book. This whole show is named after the book. Support his, go get his book, man. And if you read it and got it ready, buy some copies and give it to your nieces, nephews, cousins, grandma, great, whoever. It's really good stuff.
There you go.
And don't think that something has to be in high language for it to be important.
That's right.
Please, that's a critical mistake.
You said we're not selling millions of books. In the digital age, if we were, they could prevent you from knowing that if they wanted to. You know
that's
what I mean?
Right. Like and people could pirate your stuff online. Sometimes. Yeah.
Of course.
Always risks. But
so now we're over time, but it's always good. Tell people about Harlem Liberation School real quick before we get off.
Yes, sir. So Harlem Liberation School started with myself and my lovely queen, who I'm looking at right here, looking all chocolatey and pretty. In 2016, came from me going to these panel discussions, being on panel discussions, people debating Pan-Africanism and can't define it. People banging on black Christians with a broad paintbrush, got Garvey's flags all over the place saying Garvey. Didn't know Garvey was Christian.
Right.
My point is, I said, man, this ain't good. We don't have some of the foundational knowledge, the type of stuff that would be in your book and some of my books. And so we said, man, we got to do something about that. And so it's a political education center. We used to be brick and mortar, but a number of things kind of changed that. The epidemic, transitions, all types of stuff. But we are working diligently to be back in a brick and mortar situation, because there's nothing like that kind of that. You know, when people used to come out 2 Mondays a month, man, and that sort of face-to-face, the presentations, the activities, the film reviews, the panel discussions, and that one-on-one, man, we miss that, and we want to get back to that as soon as possible.
So Harlem Liberation School on YouTube, I would say go there, watch the videos, like and subscribe, and share those videos. Look, we talk about social media. Everybody live their life on social media. Share some Harlem Liberation School videos while you're on there, so that we can elevate our thinking and try to transform the condition of our people. Brother Agyei, I want to thank you for your time, brother. Is there a way people can reach you? I know you got a link tree. You might want to give that out before we get off real quick.
Definitely. If people look up, type my name, y'all can see it on the screen next to guest. If you type in my name, Agyei Tyehimba, space, and put link tree or just my name, it'll come up. I have a pretty sizable internet presence. So if you type my name up, a bunch of stuff will come up. And Linktree is the landing page that puts you in touch with all the major things that I'm a part of. You know, I try to share that so everything. Should I try to put it up or no?
You mean on the screen right now? You could if you choose to, sure.
I mean, I could maybe just real quick, I can copy the...
Yeah,
sorry, my brother, I know we're running over time.
Yeah, no worries. No worries. Harlem Liberation School on YouTube. That channel again is Harlem Liberation School on YouTube.
So if you go to the private chat, Brother Ra, you'll see it. It's the second link.
Okay.
The first one is the products.
Oh, got it.
The second link is the link tree.
I see it.
Family, so you know as the brothers doing that, let me say this to you. What you energize is what you grow.
That's right.
I've been saying this to people for years. What you de-energize is what you kill. So if you don't give something energy, it's going to die. If you energize something with your attention, your money, you sharing it, you doing whatever you're doing, talking about it, that's going to give life. So
that's right.
Just think about things you don't like, de-energize them. People you don't like, de-energize them. Organizations you respect, energize them. It's very simple. Pour your money, attention, and energy to the things and people that give you life so that you can help it have more life. And things that don't, unplug from them. You don't like this person? Don't spend no time with them. They're giving you headaches. You all messed up. pull away. People that make you feel hope, inspiration, good ideas, possibility, gravitate. It's very simple. Don't take no book to get that across.
Yeah, no, for real, for real. And in life, you get more of whatever it is you focus on. So if you focus
Believe it.
on the weed culture, the alcohol culture, then you'll be consuming more weed and alcohol. Now it's pill
And look,
culture.
and
It's
making them
Percocet.
richer. See, they so diabolical with it,
Yeah,
Ra.
that's true.
That
That's
they
true.
hurt, they destroy us, and get rich off of our destruction. Damn, that's
And they
like a
do that
2
every
for
time.
1.
Mass incarceration, you name it. Any form of oppression, they figured out how to not only oppress you and subjugate you, but how to make a profit in the process. Amazing. That's
That's right.
psychopathic. But that's what we
Yeah,
do.
they deserve the
Brother Agyei, I
psychopath
want to thank
award.
Yeah, for real. The Golden Psychopath Award. I like that. Maybe I'll make that a thing here.
I think since we do like a lot of the social media has like these little funny things, and some of them are hilarious. Every now and then I tell you, yo, this is mad funny. It would be nice to have a political comedic thing on these things,
Yeah.
like something like that, and the diabolical nefarious award for wicked genius goes to or whatever. But yeah, we need to exploit all areas that our people. We need to go wherever our people are, and we need to hijack those spaces. That's what I do, and that's what you do.
Yeah,
It wasn't. This space
there's a
wasn't
ministry.
made for us to be teaching people to wake up, clean up, and stand up, or get the facts.
Right.
But we hijacked it, right? We got on their plane, took that shit, said we going back to Africa. That's what we doing.
Yeah, there's a minister out of Michigan. There's a minister out of Michigan. He does what he calls the Sambo Award for the black sellouts. So I think that's funny.
The Sambo.
The Sambo Award. Yes,
that's funny.
Yes.
That's funny.
Yeah,
I would
Patty
never.
Moore here.
Wow,
I gotta bring
on
him.
that list.
I gotta bring him back. I give the black sellouts the Golden Donkey Award. That's another conversation.
We need to have those awards for real.
For real, for real.
And the good ones too.
Yeah,
the good awards for the people who really trying to do good work on our behalf too. But I like that Sambo and the Golden Donkey.
Yes.
Yes. That's what's up.
Brother Agyei, thank you for availing time from your busy schedule to join us, man. I appreciate it.
No doubt, man. It's my pleasure and my duty.
I would encourage everybody to go to Linktree, check out Brother Agyei, check out Brother Agyei on payhip.com/Wakusu products, and check out Brother Agyei on Harlem Liberation School on YouTube. I don't know how you sleep, brother. You got so much going on that is you must have a clone or something. There's two of you. The other one's sleeping right now.
Brother, when I think about all the time I wasted in my 30s, 40s, and the promise I made to my dad on his deathbed that I would bring honor to him and what he taught me, fuel in the tank, good brother. Every time I see them beating up a black man, shooting a black man, calling a black sister out her name, homeless people that's black, fuel in the tank. It goes right in this tank, and it gets me up, man. That's what does it.
Nice. You have a purpose. Nia's purpose, right? Yeah. All right, Brother Agyei. I encourage you to stay safe and stay Pan-African, brother. Thanks again for joining me, man.
Yes, sir. Peace and Black Power, family. Wakusu.
Peace. We'll talk to you again soon, all right?
Yes, sir.